Right, good evening. My name is Isabella. Welcome and thank you for coming to the Towpath Cafe. Tonight we have three amazing guests with stories that are really close to my heart, so I'm really excited to have them. First, we'll speak with Fraser and Gary. So it's always Fraser and Gary, not the other way around. That's what I was told. Who are the creators of an iconic fixture on the Scottish cycling calendar, Ride to the Sun. And if you've done Ride to the Sun, but maybe you were a little bit sore towards the end, make sure you stick around for the second part, because our following the next guest will be Jon Pavelin, who's got an amazing breadth of experience in long-distance cycling, and he's going to give us the big cycling 101, how to ride long distances with a smile. Yeah. So please welcome our first guests, Fraser and Gary. Fraser Maxwell, the tall one, is from Sunderland, and Gary Cameron, the less tall one, is from Aberdeen, and they both live in Cramond and have known each other for 14 years. In their own words, they are keen cyclists whose enthusiasm outweighs their talent on a bike. They claim they are not even decent club riders, but slow plodders. However, they've done several of the local events, such as Tour of East Lothian, Audax, Etape Caledonia several times, Fred Whitten Challenge in the Lake District, and the North Coast 500 route as well. Each year, they're also trying to have a wee foreign trip to cycle, of course, and usually they go to the Alps. Fraser likes gravel and mountain biking, and he's done the Strathpatha and the Badger Divide, while Gary adores Paris-Roubaix above all, and he's done it 6 times. 10 years ago, they first came up with an idea for the Ride to the Sun. As many of us surely know, this event simply entails riding 100 miles through the night from Carlisle to watch the sunrise on Cramond Beach in Edinburgh for the summer solstice. And each year this event attracts hundreds of participants from all around. And you will have people who will be doing their first 100 miles for the first time. Then you have the regulars who keep coming back every year. You will have club riders, and you will also have Audax cyclists who may incorporate the Ride to the Sun into their big 300 to 400 kilometers day ride. We can say for sure it's a memorable event for anyone taking part. And I can speak from my own experience. It has inspired and continues to inspire many, many cyclists to ride long distances. So I'm really looking forward to hear how it all started and how it evolved to the form that we now know. So let's now hear from Fraser and Gary.
Lovely, thank you. I think we're going to break it down into 3. We're going to talk about how it evolved, what it involves to ride it, and what we think our highlights have been. Go back to 2007, 2008, I was working on the construction of the M6 getting widened between Carlisle and Gretna, and I used to drive back up the M6 to Moffat, and I always used to cut across the hills from Moffat. I used to stop for a bar of chocolate or a coffee and drive this road. And I was probably more of a mountain biker at the time, not so much a roadie, but it just looked this absolutely awesome road. And I always had in my head that I needed to come back and to cycle this road that came out of Moffat. And I didn't know it was the Devil's Beef Tub or anything like that, but I just thought it looked absolutely amazing cycling country. So that was 2007. And then 2014, I was training for my first long distance triathlon, and my kids were really young and I didn't have much time, and I wanted to get out there and I wanted to do some longer miles. And I remember I got in the habit of on a Friday night sort of putting the kids through the bath, into bed, and then going out and cycling for a few hours at night. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Peace, quiet, the wildlife you would see, deer, badgers, barn owls, that sort of thing. I just really, really loved it. And I needed to do a 100-miler for my training, and I asked this fella, I've got this daft idea, but would you come down to Carlisle with me and cycle back from Carlisle after work on a Friday night And I'd asked loads of other pals as well, and they were like, no, that's a pretty shit idea, why would you do that? And Gary was the one guy that said, yeah, I'll do that. So we got the train down, we had a laugh on the train, I remember that. Yeah. And I had in my head an event that I'd heard of, and it's the Dunwich Dynamo. So it's an event that starts at London Fields in Hackney, and it's 120 miles through the night out to the Suffolk coast to Dunwich. And it's always around the first full moon in July. And I was telling Gary about this, and I was saying, listen, there's this crazy through the night event down in the southeast, and it's quite informal, and it's a bit ad hoc and random. And I remember getting to Gretna, and I remember having told Gary about the Dunwich Dynamo. And Gary, being Gary, just turned around and said, well, I think we should do the northern or the Scottish equivalent of this, and we should run it as an event. And I remember spending the miles between Gretna and Moffat talking with Gary about, well, if we were to run it, what would it look like? How would we do it? And we came into Moffat, and we were hungry, and it was. I remember it being a really warm night, and we knew that between Moffat and Edinburgh there was nothing to stop and eat at, and we needed some food before we set off. And the place that was just closing up was the best pizza and kebab shop in Moffat. Nobody else in. We wandered in, and there was this lady called Linda, and she pulled together sort of the leftovers of the food, and she sat down with us, and she had a chat, and she said, bring your bikes in, and I'll fill your bottles. And she's just an angel. She's absolutely lovely. And we chatted to her, we got well fed, really well fed. And before we left, we said, we've got this daft idea for an event, we've been talking about it tonight. If we ever did it, would you support us, and would you feed the cyclists? And she just turned around and said, yeah, 100%, I'll do it. And I think that was the catalyst that we needed just to get us started. But Gary's quite a gung-ho character. I'm a bit more cautious by nature. And I was sort of fearing that, what if people say it's just a copy of the Dunwich Dynamo? What if people turn up and think it's a bit shit? What if people don't want to sort of cycle through the night? And I was watching this. Gary gave me this sort of mock documentary about Nick Cave. And the end scene, I was watching it. And at that point, I was still in two minds about whether I thought we should really do Ride to the Sun. And in this final scene, there's this quote. He walks out of his house and he gives this quote. And it's, all of our days are numbered. We cannot afford to be idle. To act on a bad idea is better than to not act at all. And to me, that was a sort of really light bulb moment of, we really, really need to do this event. And I think it'll be fun, and we just need to jump in and go for it. So that was September 2014, and Gary, being Gary, got a website set up, and that is what Ride to the Sun looks like on a mug or in sort of cartoon format. 43 flat miles to Moffat, and then you've got it's far gentler in reality, the climb of the doubles, beef tub, and then it's all downhill to Edinburgh.
Promise it's all downhill. So I'll talk to you a little bit through, I suppose, what's to expect on the night, you know, how it's evolved and kind of how we got there and kind of the journey of all of that. I suppose it just struck me there when Fraser was talking, if you're going to organise a bike ride, you might as well have it finishing at your house where you live, so we'll go through Cramond. So we could have done that part of it. So we've got the least distance to travel at the end of it, so that's always good. So just thinking, so this week I was actually writing a piece. So my day job is advertising and marketing, hence why it was easy for me to kind of get the website up and what have you. And I was writing a bit for LinkedIn this week, just talking about Ride to the Sun and I suppose the brand and how we got to kind of where we are. And probably, you know, saying that we wanted it to be purpose-led, we wanted it to be inclusive, we wanted it to be kind of open to everyone. And I think what's interesting to me I suppose, is how we got there, because like Fraser said, when we started this journey, we didn't really start with much more than just a kind of a little idea, and really it's kind of evolved into something that we never really, thought it would be right at the very start, and that whole journey and that whole process has been really, really enjoyable for both of us and for the people that do it. And I suppose when you say, cycle from Carlisle to Cramond overnight, it sounds dead simple, but it definitely comes with its challenges, and it's amazing to us how many people actually do it for their first 100-mile cycle, and I think a lot of that is down to the kind of camaraderie of the event, because it's not elitist, because it's open to everyone. I think that encourages a kind of broad spectrum of cyclists to come and take part. It really, really does. So the start of the event, it starts in Carlisle. It starts in Bits Park, which is just a community car park, dead low key. So the whole idea of Ride to the Sun is to arrive on Cramond Beach for sunrise. So because there's no official start time, work back from there and think, right, it's going to take me 6 hours, 5 hours, 12 hours, whatever, and just leave when you think it's going to be for that, to get there on time. So people milling about, we've been really lucky with the weather. Most years seems to be, touch wood. Sorry. So people can tend to think, right, I'll set up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and really just get into groups, maybe with people they know, or just kind of meet people on the night. And that's really nice. But I suppose part of Ride to the Sun is because it's a point-to-point ride, there's obviously the extra challenge of that, the logistics of that. Like Isa said, there's people now who come and do it for their first 100-mile ride. There will be people who will do the double, so down from Cramond to Carlisle and then right back. There'll be people who do it as part of a 400-mile ODAX, so there is a kind of broad spectrum of people that do it. But what makes it really easy for the cyclists is that part of the thing that evolved is the Scouts transport, which David and Miriam, who are here this evening, do an amazing job transporting all the cyclists down from Edinburgh to the start in Carlisle. And that, again, one of those things that just evolved throughout the event, and it makes it really loads of reflected glory on us, because David and Miriam do such a lovely job doing it, an amazing job. It makes Fraser and us look good. We have to hold our hands up and say it's absolutely nothing to do with us. We're just it just makes it easier for everyone who's coming along to the event. So yeah, people come up on tandems. We've had people on Bromptons do it. People on mountain bikes do it. So leaving Carlisle. Normally, it's hopefully it's nice and sunny, and it's really easy, busy coming out of Carlisle. But then once you get out of Carlisle, it's nice, flat, straight roads, really sociable cycling. So people can chat to the groups that they're in, get to know people. And I suppose the first major point on the route, as such, is the photo opportunity that comes at the Scotland sign, at the border sign, which loads of people take the opportunity to do that. And then on from there, it's really nice, quiet roads up to Gretna and then to Moffat. The irony is that I'm the one talking about the route and how to get there, and I'm kind of known to have the worst sense of direction of everyone that we cycle with. So bear with me if I get the routes, the names of the roads wrong. I actually, no, when you go, Fraser, I could see you waiting to jump in there, so go on.
It's either say it now or say it later. I think Isa's going to ask us some of our favourite memories of Ride to the Sun, and Gary has a particularly shit sense of direction. And he once took this group of about 20, and you go into Longtown and you take a left to Gretna. And Gary went straight on and did this sort of magical mystery tour of the Scottish borders before he realised he'd gone wrong. So that's one of my favourite memories. Yeah.
Getting people the wrong way on your own event. To be fair, so in fact, leading on actually, that makes sense. So part of the thing about Ride to the Sun is that there's no signposts. There's no support, so you're on your own. So it adds to that sense of adventure. Don't let that put you off, because most years now we get upwards of 1,000, we think, cyclists taking part. So you're never really on your own. Because it's that thing, because you don't know how many people are taking part. We've got a kind of rough idea, because people are leaving Carlisle at different times. It's not really until you get further up the road and the faster people have caught, some people who have left earlier, that you really get a sense of the size of the event, and once everybody gets to Cramond. So the next major point, like Fraser said, is the chippy at Moffat, which, I mean, Linda just does an amazing job. Incidentally, she doesn't even work at the chippy anymore. She now just does a cameo on the night of Ride to the Sun and comes back and caters for all the cyclists. So not only does she do an amazing job with that, outside the chippy at Moffat, you know, there's water, there's free teas and coffees, so it's a real buzz in Moffat, and a kind of another focal point of the night. And all these things evolved, I suppose, by, you know, happy coincidences or circumstances. You know, it sounds like, you know, we set off at the very start thinking we were going to do all these things, but they just evolved over time, really. It's fair to say. So leaving Moffat, you've got the Devil's Beef Tub, which is the big climb on the route, which is probably fair to say is most people, or a lot of people's favourite part of the ride. Because as you leave Moffat, it's generally, you know, it's getting darker, you're maybe slightly nervous because you're thinking, I've got to the rest of this ride through the night. But coming up the Devil's Beef Tub, it's 7 miles. Yeah. 7 miles to the top, so you can see all the red lights twinkling in front of you. You look behind you, you can see all the lights coming down the hill. So it is really just spectacular and really memorable. At the top of the Beef Tub, year 3, I think. Throughout the years, we've added bits to the ride just to kind of put focal points along the route, and we kind of always thought, or Fraser certainly always thought, you know, we need to do something at the top of the Devil's Beef Tub, and we thought, fireworks. We'll do that. Maybe that's not health and safety. We were never really big on health and safety, to be honest with you. But even we thought fireworks were probably not a good idea. And then Fraser thought, do you know what? We'll see if we can get somebody to play the pipes. And obviously, probably most of us here are from Scotland, so you hear the bagpipes relatively often. But we get so many people from Ride to the Sun coming up from down south. We've even had people from coming overseas to do it. And you don't appreciate how little that they hear the pipes. And then the first year that we did it, we didn't tell them what was happening. And then somebody's like coming up the top and was like, definitely bagpipes at the top of this hill. So, and that's become a real special point. People stop and take photographs with the pipers.
Yeah, I think I would just like to give Sarah a shout out, because Gary said we've been really lucky with the weather. I think year 1 we had an hour of light rain. 2022 was very different, and we had the mother of all thunderstorms. Almost at the time that everybody was either going up the beef tub or dropping down. And Sarah was 14 at the time, and she played for 3 hours without stopping through the storm. And you know, I just assumed she would jump in the car and drive home with her dad. She played non-stop for 3 hours. So
throughout the terrible weather,
it's a bit humbling when somebody does that for you.
For sure. See, it's almost like we planned this, because that leads into the next bit. So on the night of the terrible weather, I think I'd cycled to Moffat, and it was biblical rain. You know, the thunderstorm. Mackenzie will tell you, because you'd ridden it that night, hadn't you? And I kind of parked the car in Moffat, thinking, do you know what? Because it's a long descent from Moffat and I thought, do you know, there's definitely going to be people be cold. And there was a chap there who was still in his summer cycling kit, shivering, so got him to the Crook Inn, and then he thought, do you know what, I'll phone my wife, she'll come and pick me up. And I said, oh, do you know, it's 4 in the morning, your wife's going to come and pick you up, that's very good of her. So his wife gets out of the car at 4 in the morning, she must have been at least 8 months pregnant. I was thinking, mate, you are in a world of trouble here on that night. So dress, we've never really been caught out other than that night, but certainly people don't appreciate how cold it can get on the descent from the Devil's Beef Tub. So descending down the Devil's Beef Tub and along the Tweed Valley, the next stop is the Crook Inn, which is an old disused coach house is probably how to describe it. So that year 1 we had that as a stop, just water and bananas, and kind of dead low key, because I think we had 200 people riding in year 1. So on year 1, our friend was just giving out bananas, and then somebody commented, oh, it was great to have Banana Man there handing out the bananas. So we had nothing else to do, but on year 2 we thought, do you know what, we'll get our good friend Steve, we'll actually dress him up as Banana Man. So he was Banana Man year 2, 3, and then he's a bit of an narcoleptic, so he kept falling asleep. So then we've got Gordon to do it, and Henry, I think, has been Banana Man a couple of times, so he's our current Banana Man. And then I think in year 2, we thought, do you know what, being an old raver myself, I thought, Crookin, abandoned place, it sounds like a lot of the places I used to spend my youth. So we thought, right, I know there's electric there, so we spoke to a friend who's a DJ and thought, do you know what, see if we can set up a bit of a rave in the middle of nowhere, which we managed to do. And again, we didn't on the year that we did it, we weren't sure if we were going to manage to pull it off, so again, we didn't tell anyone. And I think you were cycling down the road with someone, weren't you?
Yeah, it's sort of one of the sort of peak memories for me. We were about a mile short of the Crook Inn, and I knew what was coming. There was going to be lights and lasers and music. And this guy was chatting to me, he didn't know I was one of the organisers, so we were just blethering away. And as we got closer to the Crook Inn, he was like, I knew that this would happen. I'd get so tired, I would start to hallucinate. And he said, I'm hallucinating, and I think I can hear rave music, and I think I can see lights and lasers. And I was like, I can't see them. And then just his reaction when we pulled up at the Crook Inn, and in the middle of nowhere there's a rave and 200 cyclists, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So kudos to Gary for that idea.
Well, do you know what, and it is, again, like the Scout Transport, there's a lot of stuff that Fraser and I, or a lot of things that happen and have happened throughout Ride to the Sun that we probably get more credit for than we're because DJ Neil and Shep, who set up the Crook Inn, they've basically taken that and run with it. And every year, the sound system gets bigger, there's more lasers, more smoke machines, so much so that the residents round about now come and spend their night at the Crook Inn and join in the rave. So, and like you say, kind of Linda at the Chippy and all these people who kind of add to the event, certainly.
Yeah, I think two things there. I saw a gig last year, Richard Hawley, and Richard Hawley said, it's my name above the door, but it's the band that make it happen. And I think to David and Henry and others, I think that's absolutely true. Shep and Neil.
I think there's people call us the organisers, but we say, no, we're just the facilitators. Two things there. Organisation, that would suggest some level of responsibility, which we absolutely don't want. And then there's all the other people that absolutely make it happen, and without them there would be no Ride to the Sun, or certainly it wouldn't be the kind of iconic, as he says, event that it is. And I think, like I said at the start, when we started out on this journey, we didn't really have an idea of kind of where it would end up in the event that it would be, but certainly it's something that's everybody seems to enjoy, and we're certainly proud of facilitating.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was going to say is you can tell that Neil and Shep are still getting ever more enthusiastic every year, because we had our first noise complaint last year. And this lady got in touch with me on the phone. She was like, I'm a mile away from the Crook Inn and I can hear the noise.
So leaving the Crook Inn is probably the loneliest or the most challenging part of the evening, because there's probably nothing from there until you start getting back into civilization. So good in many ways, because wildlife, barn owls, kind of all those things that you don't really see when you're out cycling normally, and just the kind of challenge. You're probably the most tired you've been throughout the night. The road surface isn't great at that point, but then you kind of start to see the sun coming up, which kind of spurs you on, and you start kind of re-entering civilization, dodging the drunks as you come through the city centre. There has been some interesting shout-outs to people, and when they see all the cyclists coming through Edinburgh city centre and everybody's kind of leaving the clubs, and then straight from there down to Cramond. Cramond Kirk, there's an army of volunteers who put on bacon rolls, soup, chilli, to feed all the hungry cyclists at the end of Ride to the Sun. Local charity that I'm involved with, Fresh Start, provide the catering there with the help again of the local scouts, and do an amazing job, and feed the hungry and cold cyclists sometimes. And after that, it's down to Cramond seafront. So sunrise is normally
4:26.
4:26, thank you. You can tell he's the details man. I'm the ideas man, he's the man of the details. 100%. 4:26 and free beer given out at the event. So two things, if you're going to have a food stop on your ride, definitely make it a chippy where you can get fish and chips or a kebab. And if you're going to have energy drinks at the end, definitely make it beer, which everyone seems to like. And big thanks to Stuart Brewing, who have been big supporters of us every year. We can't thank them enough, because it's literally, we phone them up. How many cyclists have you got? About 1,000 cans of beer come down, and the guys at Cycle Law Scotland who do a little pop-up bar, and so everyone can have a drink watching the sunrise over Fife. And watch the sunrise at 4:26. So that's what to expect on the night. And then I suppose we've just got so I mean that's the kind of, it's not, like I said, it's not until the end you actually appreciate how many people have taken part, I think. Yeah, and just how big an event it's become. Fresh Start, like I say, they come down and help out and raise good funds by providing all the catering at the end. And I suppose just some highlights for us of being involved, because aside from being able to do talks like this, there's part of the journey is growing the event, and part of the journey of all the things that have happened and we've been asked to do, which has been lovely. So 1 year.
So the Ride Journal was this very sort of niche, upmarket sort of cycling art product, sort of 10 years back. And
probably not fitting with us because it's quite arty.
But we submitted, they finished after 10 Ride Journals, and we knew that the last one was coming up, and I wrote to them and said, can we submit an article? And they said, yeah, we'd love you to. And we got chosen to write an article.
Yeah.
And the Ride Journal previous contributors had been Chris Boardman, Fabian Cancellara, Bradley Wiggins, people like that. So it felt like a real treat to get invited to write an article for the Ride Journal. And each article that they ever did got its own bespoke bit of art. So there's a guy called Joe Snow, captured Ride to the Sun before it had even happened. So there's Roman helmets on the cyclists, there's Scottish forestry, there's Cramond Island Causeway, there's the sun coming up. And I think even now, 10 years on, that feels as if it did capture it.
Yeah.
And it was a real treat just to be part of the Ride Journal.
Yeah. And it was, I suppose, with the kind of the Roman, so if, I don't know if you've seen our branding, but it's, the kind of Roman helmet, and I think we've had featured Russell Crowe in quite a lot of our posts as Gladiator, encouraging people to come along. But again, that was one of those things, like Cramond used to be an old Roman garrison. We found out afterwards that Carlisle was an old Roman garrison town, so it kind of just fitted. The event, luckily for us, was bang on 100 miles, so a century of miles just kind of added to it. We get groups of people or groups of clubs who come along every year, and I think, Fraser, you know the guys from is it Alan?
Alan Valley Velo. So I just put this in. I think we've sort of peaked numbers-wise. I don't think we're ever going to get any bigger. But I think what we do have is loyalty. And Alan Valley Velo came in year one. I remember the guy on the right, John Forster, chatting to him. And he comes up every year and has a chat. And he's the world's nicest guy. He sent us cycling jerseys this year. And they always turn up. Sometimes there's 6 or 7 of them. Sometimes there's 20 of them. But I think we appreciate that loyalty, that people come back year after year, and it's nice to see familiar faces. It really is.
Yeah, I think because of the accessibility of it, you'll get these guys. And there was a girl one year who'd wrote to us afterwards, and I think she said, she'd gone out cycling with our local club, didn't enjoy it because they were a bit snippy, as some cyclists can be. She didn't have the right kit. She had flat bar bike and just not clip-on shoes, and she, totally put me off cycling. That's it. And then she'd come along to do Ride to the Sun, cycle with a group, and then she messaged us afterwards and said, I absolutely loved it. It encouraged me. I'd managed to do my 100 miles. I've since found a group of cyclists that suits me, and for us, that's what it's all about. It's about it's about encouraging people, getting people on their bikes, and that kind of sense of adventure, definitely.
I think this was the first year that I got a shock that it was sort of perhaps the reach of Ride to the Sun was far bigger than we imagined. This is Frank from Germany, and Frank just turned up unannounced and he said, yeah, I've come over from Germany for the event.
I've never cycled 100 miles. I've flown from Germany to Carlisle, or we can't, there's no airport in Carlisle, but he's come.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that was just, that blew my mind a little bit, that that it got to Germany, that somebody was willing to come across and ride it. And subsequently we've had Richie come twice from the States to ride it. Yeah. We had 2 sisters from Belgium last year, and that still just blows my mind. I think in my head I always thought it would be people from 50 miles around Carlisle and 50 miles around Edinburgh, and nobody else would ever bother. Just amazing. So this is a photo from last year, and I think this, for me, they call themselves the Shit Shirt Squad. But to me, this is Ride to the Sun. This is, nobody's interested in Strava, nobody's interested in going as fast as they can, nobody's interested in KOMs. It's about the summer solstice, it's hopefully sunny, you're hopefully with a group of your friends, you're not taking it seriously, you're going to take advantage of the chip shop and stop and have your photo taken with the piper, and then stop for half an hour and rave at a derelict pub in the Tweed Valley, and then you're going to have a beer at the seafront, and you're going to do it in a spirit of relaxation, camaraderie, partying, and all those sorts of things. These guys sort of really caught my imagination last year. I thought, that is Ride to the Sun. That's what we want it to be. Yeah. By accident. Yeah, that's not how we designed it, but that is, to me, what I want from Ride to the Sun every year.
Yeah. We have had, I think, so this is our good, on the left is our good friend DCT, David Colin Taylor. And the other chap is
Andy Waller.
Andy Waller.
South Queen Street.
Are 2 ever present that have done every single Ride to the Sun. So now they're kind of lockstep in this one. If he's doing it, I have to do it. So that's our 2 ever present riders, which is amazing. In year 4, 2018. To get it established, we were really, you could call us persistent, or you could call us really annoying. And we would noise up various people and try and catch their attention and get them to do things. And I must have sent 50 tweets to the Adventure Show Twitter account and said, we think this event is perfect for TV, you should come and film it. And they never bloody responded. And so I kept going, and then one day I got a tweet back and said, it's on, we'll come and do it. So this is Lucy on the left, and they came and filmed the Adventure Show, which was just an amazing thrill. We were on the Adventure Show for about 8 minutes. Our 2 daughters featured in it, and it was just, I don't know, just a real thrill to get that recognition. And I remember going into work the next day and people sort of saying, bloody hell, I saw you on the TV last night. And then Gary sent me an email sort of 10 o'clock on the Monday morning, said, we had 300 people sign up last night. So that was 2018, so it meant that 2019 was crazy big numbers. We think we had between 1,500 and 1,800 people ride that year. That will never be repeated, but it felt crazy busy and crazy fun just on the back of the exposure we got on the Adventure Show. So we were politely persistent in chasing them to come in. I mean, I think as well, like Fraser says, we were persistent, but there's so much goodwill around the event, and I think the goodwill around the event comes from the people who participate, because Ride to the Sun is free to do. Ride to the Sun will always be free to do. It's never about, like people have asked us, will you raise money for charity off the back of it, and it's not about that. It's about that adventure and getting people on. But if people want to ride it and raise money for charity, fair enough, fill your boots. But for us, it will never be about that. Obviously, on our social media, we kind of have a bit of fun because we can. So on the right hand side, that's Linda at the Moffat's Chippy, nutritional advice we always share before riding the sun, and then our kind of own take on the train spotting, chain spotting meme, which kind of always goes down well, and then obviously kind of mocking things up. These didn't actually happen. This is just our craves at work. Sorry, these did happen. This is Fraser and I's guerrilla marketing tactics. And the one on the top with the 747 we usually put out to drum up some business for the Scout Transport when that opens. And then, so we'll have a standing joke every year. So one year we put out a joke, on April the 1st we said, Carl Cox is playing at the Rave at the Cuckoo this year. And amazingly, some people kind of believed it. And then in year 2, Fraser said, oh shit, we've not done anything for April Fools. Oh, we'll use the same thing again. So that's become our little personal joke, that we use the same message every year. But then this year, Biddy, who's the MD at Fresh Start, would put out that Carl Cox is there, but Carl Cox had been speaking to Fatboy Slim at Glastonbury, and Fatboy Slim was now going to be playing, and then Biddy'd been telling everyone that Fatboy Slim was going to be at the Cookin.
So even though we've been doing it 6 or 7 years, the same gag, we still get people messaging us saying, oh wow, that's amazing, Carl Cox is coming. This is a lad called Deacon. I think in year 2 we had 3 12-year-olds ride the event, and I thought that was remarkable, and I think that showed just how inclusive it is and how accessible it is. It's a relatively easy 100 miles, and I think if you've done, if you're reasonably well prepped, you can plod through the night and get it done. So Deacon's brother has come the year before. Deacon was 8 when he rode it in year 3. Bike looks a bit too big for him. He was full of chat. He's quite the character.
Oh, yes.
And apparently he's coming again this year. But an 8-year-old rode it in 2017, which was super impressive.
But then one of the 11-year-olds that rode it in year 3, like last year, he was down at the seafront having a beer with us. We've now been doing this quite a long time.
Can you remember when he rode it? He came and he was such a cute little lad. He had like a little toy sheep tied to his handlebars. And then we said to him last year when he came, do you still have your toy sheep on your handlebars? Shh, don't mention it.
Now he's tapping us up for another can of beer.
This is another head moment. Brian Gonzo Gonzalez, who's the lad in Fife, got in touch with us. And he's had a tattoo of Ride the Sun on his leg. So, like, we've talked about having Ride the Sun tattoos and still haven't made that bold move yet. But Brian's a big enough fan that he's branded himself with Ride to the Sun. And fair play to him.
Yeah.
So,
on you go for it.
So in year 1, there was a guy rode up from Stockport or somewhere like that in the northwest, and a lad called Ian Bailey, and it rained for about an hour in year 1, and there's a truckers cafe near Ecclefechan, and he pulled into the truckers cafe, and the truckers were like, what the hell are you doing? And they got him pissed. and he rode the rest of the route really, really drunk. And then he cropped up again about 3 years ago, post-COVID anyway. And he just, when he got to the seafront, the tide was in, and he stripped off and he went for a swim into the river. I think it was the riverside, not the sea. He went for a swim. But that's just sparked these 3 lads. They came last year and had the same. They were a bit more seriously prepped. They had goggles and hats. But they had a swim out towards, not all the way, but out towards Cramond Island. And again, I love the randomness of it. It's not something I would fancy doing after 100 miles and a beer, but it's just that spontaneous randomness that seems to attach itself to the event. And we love that.
And then there's a spin-off ride that we do called Ride to the Pub on the winter solstice. Not nearly on the same scale. That starts kind of it's more just kind of our local. I mean, anybody can come along, but because it's it's dark, so it's on our kind of local route out to West Lothian, starting at the Cramond in, Cramond in, out into West Lothian and back. So that's kind of nice. And then people come along with their bikes decorated with tinsel and Christmas lights and Santa hats, and it's become a real kind of focus point of the year as well.
We were talking to John the other day, and John and Isa and Mackenzie, and they said, "Ride to the Sun is a gateway drug." I really, really love that, and I think we've had tweets like this where somebody has come along to the event and not been a proper cyclist, and just the event has resonated with them, they've really loved it, and then they've taken their cycling a step further. So this lady, you know her name, Carrie?
Carrie.
She said, "I'm not much of a cyclist." She came and did it, and then a year later she was doing the 1,000-mile Trans-Alba. And I just love that beyond words. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I think we always, the days running up to Ride to the Sun are always quite stressful. It's busy. You're sort of wanting to get involved yourself. There's the pressure to make it all happen. You want everybody to have a good time. And I think there's always like a pressure valve released the next morning when everybody's home and everybody's had a good time and they've been fed at the church hall, and they come up to you and say all of these nice things. But we keep a track of the feedback, and I think it just makes it all worthwhile. Just some of the feedback that we've had is incredibly just warms your heart.
Yeah.
Warms your heart.
Yeah, so Petra, my wife, who's there, who won't be like me pointing her out, but she sent me a quote today, and it was about the girl who had run the marathon, the London Marathon, who I think she ran her first marathon 5 years ago, and it was like 2000s and something like that, and then she ran the marathon, and now she was 16th finished there, and it was just about her journey from that, and her quote was, "You don't have to be great to get started, you just have to start to get great." And for us, Ride to the Sun is not about getting great. Ride to the Sun is just about getting on your bike and that sense of adventure. And if it encourages more people to ride, and eventually it encourages more people to ride things like the Trans-Alba or do Odaxes, brilliant. It's just about finding your level of cycling, and the feedback and the quotes that we get in at the end of it is just phenomenal. And then, so Ride to the Sun is so for us and for a lot of people that take part. There's so many amazing Ride to the Sun moments, and people have got their stories to tell about the dark moments of the ride, and when they were on their own, or just that kind of sense of adventure on the ride. And these two ladies, just as the sun rising, it was the most amazing sunrise that we've ever had. And the lady on the right pulled out her accordion, and our friend started playing the fiddle, and it was just the most beautiful, perfect moment. And then
manage it if you want.
Go on then, Fraser.
I might cry. So they started playing, and it was amazing in itself. You can see the sun in the background, the music was great, big smiles on their faces, and the lady on the right, her husband, came and tapped me on the shoulder and just said, "That's my wife on the right, and she's got terminal cancer." And she had in her head that she wanted to do Ride to the Sun is one of her bucket list things before the inevitable happened. So that was 2022, and we put that up on social media just before last year's event, 2023, and she passed away. And I think just an incredibly moving. He just wrote us this lovely message to say how special it was to her and to him.
Yeah. And I think, so for us, if it's, like Fraser said, all of our days are numbered, we cannot afford to be idle. To act on a bad idea is better than to not act at all. And when we started this journey, we didn't know if it was a good, a bad, or a terrible idea, to be honest with you, because we weren't sure in year one how many people would turn up. And it turns out that there's enough people as daft as us, as adventurous as us, who want to cycle through the night. So we thank everyone who's done it. Thank you guys for coming along and listening to us. And if there's any questions, happy to try and answer them.
So first of all, I would like to thank you for actually creating this, and as I said, inspiring so many people. And thanks to Henry, because he inspired me. Like, that's how I learned about the Ride to the Sun.
Brilliant.
And so seeing other people doing the same things, like similar things, it's like, oh, maybe I can actually do that as well. And turns out I could, and I still can, which is very good.
Brilliant.
So actually, I want to ask you, Fraser. So it looks like it was essential for the two of you to do this first ride for the event to happen.
Yeah.
Because like it was your idea, but then Gary says like, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So would you go on that first ride on your own if Gary didn't say yes?
Yeah, I would have done. I was quite regularly riding on a Friday night and loving it. So yeah, I'd already had my mind up to. I needed to get 100 miles in my legs. I wanted to do that Devil's Beef Tub climb that I'd had in my mind for 7 years. I was going to do it, but it was a real, that in itself was just a sliding doors moment that if he hadn't come, Ride to the Sun wouldn't have happened. So it's just a happy accident. But as soon as I mentioned, I know what he's like, as soon as I mentioned the Dunwich Dynamo to him, you could just see the cogs going around, just like, I'm up for some of that. But that's just Gary all over. So, a happy chance that, if any, I would always say this, if any of my other pals had come that night, nobody else would have then led on to Ride to the Sun. So.
Oh. So, do you think the format is ever going to change? Do you think it's going to evolve into something else over the next several years? Or you are happy as it is now?
So we've been asked this before, and we've kind of, we like to think it's as perfect as, we can make it. And we've been asked before, would you do something more at the end? And we kind of thought, we'll get somebody with decks down at the end, kind of doing more of a Cafe Del Mar kind of vibe as the sun goes up. But then that's us kind of controlling the end of it, and we like to leave that a bit spontaneous. If we had done that and curated how it finishes, then we wouldn't have got that amazing moment with the lady with our accordion and our fiddle. So no, I don't think we'll change it. Never say never. There might be some tweaks, but as it stands at the moment, I mean, I really don't think that it will change particularly.
Don't mess up with perfection.
Well, and I'd agree with that. I think it evolved. Gary had the idea for the Crook Inn, and as soon as you'd done that, it's like, oh my God, we've got to keep doing that. But then, the top of the Devil's Beef Tub is the highest point, and it's exactly halfway. So we always had in our heads that we needed to do something there. And I think as soon as we filled those gaps, I think it feels really nice. I think the one thing we could do is to try and create a bit more of a focus in Carlisle. Lots of people get dropped off the other side of Carlisle Castle now. And I think some people just set off straight down the road without coming into the car park to chat to us. You've got an idea for how to get peak interaction this year.
Okay.
But I think Chippy, Beef Tub, Crook Inn, what happens at the seafront at the Kirkhall, I think that's pretty good. And I think I hadn't thought about this for years, but if you look at the Dunwich Dynamo, that's a straight 120-mile ride, and there's none of that. And I think I'm fairly proud that we evolved. I think we used to say we were a homage to the Dunwich Dynamo, but I think we've evolved it enough that it's very different and unique.
Do you think you're ever gonna get tired of facilitating this? And are you gonna retire from organizing? Oh.
No, I don't think so. Well, inevitably at some point, well, it will. But, jokingly, we have talked about that. And so our kids at the end have been involved either manning the merch stall, because there's T-shirts that help, so we've got to pay for bananas at the Crook Inn, so those are these kind of sundries that we've got to pay for. So we sell some T-shirts. So they've been involved in that, and we've kind of joked with them that, we might kind of that might be passed down, as it were, as long as they promise to kind of keep doing it in the spirit that it's intended. But for this foreseeable future, I think if people keep turning up to do it, then we'll keep doing it. And to be honest with you, I mean, at some point it's going to be terrible weather, and people, because it's free, people go, I'm looking at that, I don't really fancy this, it'll probably be Fraser and I and about 5 other people, then we'll probably still keep doing it. So, yeah. So.
Yeah, I think as long as there's still the enthusiasm and the passion for it from others, then I'm in.
Yeah, all in.
So, are there any questions from the audience now?
Cheers. So, I mean, first of all, I was already, this will be my first year doing it. I've got my scout ticket and everything.
Brilliant.
So, I was already excited about doing it. I'm beside myself with excitement. I really can't wait. I bought a new bike last year and actually had it in my mind specking it up for Ride to the Sun, almost specifically. So, I'm really looking forward to it. I've always wanted to do the Danish Dynamo. I did manage to make it happen when I lived down there, so this is going to be great. I'm a bit of a raver as well. There's an event I'm missing out that weekend, so I'm glad I'm going to get to have a bit of a dance anyway. The question I had was, you have a bit of an association with Torm, is that right? Because I've bought their stuff before and it's really, really good. I just wondered how that came about.
So that became, that was just messing around on Twitter in year 1. And just trying to get people to retweet what the event was and that sort of thing. And Paul just dropped us a line and said, yeah, can we have a chat? I'm up for getting involved. And he sent us 2 bright yellow jerseys in year 1. And then, I think you could see year 2 that the numbers were taking off and just wanted to engage with us and help us. And sort of the black jerseys with the red and the yellow became the thing. He's a great guy. We really, really like Paul. He's come up and ridden it most years. I think the jerseys are amazing. So yeah, just a happy accident, but he's a super fella, so we're really chuffed to have that collaboration with him. And please come and chat to us in Bits Power. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
You talked about being facilitators rather than organisers. So, what are your duties, and what's the annual biggest pain in the bum?
I think Gary has the harder job because he manages the database and the e-shots. He's the creative one, so he does the T-shirts. So I think in the month or so in advance of Ride to the Sun, Gary has more to do than me. I'm generally the one messing around on social media. But I do feel as if it's shared around. I mean, we couldn't get 300 people down to Carlisle without David and Miriam and the Scouts. Shep and Neil just look after the Crook Inn. We don't need to do anything there. It's a phone call to Linda. Mm-hmm. She's not very good at keeping in touch, but she's a bit random. But we know that she signed up for this year.
Yeah.
So it does feel, you're involved with Fresh Start and the Kirk Hall. It does feel now, it felt, for me in the early years, it felt as if we were the organisers.
Yeah.
Now it feels as if it's like a group of 15 and everybody's got their roles and we do a smaller proportion of it. So, people like David and Henry and Shep and Neil, they don't get any cash. They do it as a favour and because they love it. And each year I sort of wince asking them to do it again. And they're like, Shep and Neil are like, yeah, I've already got the set list planned. I can't wait to do it. I'm like, excited by it.
DJ Neil is like driving his wife crazy in the months leading up to it because he's, practicing his set, and he's even got, he'll cue his set to like, when do you think it'll be the busiest? So then he's like dropping his most favourite tunes. So, a quick story about the Crook Inn. One year we got to the Crook Inn, and so it's a really big car park where we set up. And before Shep and Neil had got all their kit there, somebody had pulled up in a camper van, parked it in the Crook Inn, settled down for the night, drawn the blinds or whatever. So between that and then obviously by this point the guys had obviously set up all the equipment and everything like that, and
There was
couple.
fire pits in the way.
Oh yeah, so by this point they now couldn't get out of where they were, and it wasn't like like a house party. You maybe put the music on like 2 and it slowly gets louder and louder. He'll put his set on like a max volume, and I just had visions of this woman, bolt upright in her bed as the tune started. So this couple were stuck there for like 4 hours in this camper van. So months afterwards, Fraser, because there was quite a lot of messages coming in after the event, and we missed the message from the couple in the camper van. So he'd messaged to say, "Yeah, that wasn't quite how we were expecting to spend the night. Me, I'm an old raver. I quite liked it. My wife, not so much."
All right. Any more? There.
I don't have a question. I just want to say a huge thanks to Gary and to Fraser for letting us do the transport, because it's their reputation. I know they say they take all the credit for it, but actually it is right to the sun, and we're completely behind, and if something went wrong, it would be right to the sun. So we really, the nicest guys to work with, genuinely, and also just the amount of scouts that benefit right across west of Edinburgh. Huge amount of scouts benefit from the fundraising that we're able to do through this, and it's a fantastic event to be a part of. So hugely grateful.
May I ask you? So actually, how do the scouts get involved with it, or is it the adults?
So I'll tell you a story.
Oh,
a little
thank
story. Our daughter was a scout, and 2 of our daughters were scouts, but one of them had been selected to go to the World Jamboree, which is a fantastic scouting camp for right across the whole world, and 40,000-50,000 scouts get together in one part of the world. And this particular year, what year was it, David? Was it 2000? I can't remember. Each scout has to raise a certain amount of money to be able to go, and there's only so many cake stalls you can do, cake sales and whatever. And we were thinking, how are we going to do this? And there was other scouts that needed help as well. And so David came up with the idea, why don't we approach Gary and Fraser, saying this is a one-way cycle, people need to get down. And my husband had always wanted to do it, and he had looked at doing it a couple of times, but you couldn't get a slot on the train because the train only takes 4 bikes, and there was lots more cyclists that needed to get down. So we sat down with Gary and Fraser, and they were completely up for it. So I think the first year we did 2 coaches.
Yep.
Now we do 6. And it's just fantastic. And the atmosphere is fantastic. All the cyclists are amazing. Just lovely to work with. And it's great. Really, really good.
Kudos to you guys.
Yeah, that's lovely words, Miriam, but I think we're so disorganised that you add to our reputation. There's no risk of you ever ruining our reputation.
Oh, yeah.
So you couldn't run it better, so thank you.
We'll have now a quick break. Actually, before that, could you go to the next, just one next slide, a secret slide. Oh.
Next one.
No. So that's actually a slide. That's, because Fraser and Gary, apparently the like thing.
Can I just say that obviously I think as we started we said Ride to the Sun has been a huge journey of where the event has evolved from, and I couldn't think of one of the highlights for me is being able to do it with this guy.
Aww.
100%. Yeah,
it's been good.
All right, so thanks again.
Thank you.
And we'll have a quick break now, and then we'll have Jon Pavelin telling us everything how to ride with a smile.
Thank you.